Welcome to the Menowave Lounge, hot flashes and cool conversations with Marti Daly and Robin Duke. Join us and our team of health professionals, holistic practitioners, and coaches as we talk openly about the ups, downs, and everything in between when it comes to navigating the Menowave of menopause.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Menowave Lounge, hot flashes and cool conversations. Today, we have Louise Able with us as our guest.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody.
Hi, Louise. Louise is a health and wellness coach and a mentor to women. For 12 years, she has operated a successful business teaching women the importance of nutrition and mindset during menopause. She looks through a holistic lens to address issues that affect the total woman. Her aim is to help women improve the health of every aspect of her entire well-being. Louise is also an author, and we are going to discuss today, I'm super excited, her newest book, Menopause for Beginners. We are super excited to have you. Let me ask you, Louise, how did Menopause for Beginners come to be? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us, ladies. It's a joy to be here. I wrote Menopause for Beginners because my journey through perimenopause was kind of hell. And I just didn't want other women to go there. And in order for me to get through it, I ended up doing a lot of research and I uncovered a lot of information. And I just thought, you know what, I need to share this with other women so that they didn't go through that. So that was really why I did this book, just genuinely from my heart to help other people, really and truly.
Well, that's so great because we need to really debunk the myth of perimenopause and the symptoms and everything that is on this journey, because there's so much misinformation out there that getting out good, correct information is so important.
Well, that's what I discovered. It was this whole misinformation, or there's two things, lack of information and wrong information. And somewhere in the middle is the stuff that we need to know. And it really, really bothers me that we are given the wrong information. That's where we come up with the title of this podcast, Debunking the Myths, because still to this day, women believe so many wrong things. And it's not, ladies, it's not your fault. It's not your fault but it's been given to us historically that all of these things are going to talk about. I know we're going to break it down. But so much of it is wrong. And so many women are suffering unnecessarily because they have the wrong information or they are not given the information. And this is why we're here, ladies, isn't it? All of us are here actually to share what we know. We're just a bit further along the journey than some women. And if 10 years ago, when I started my perimenopause journey, someone had been here like we are now telling us this stuff, I know for sure that I would have saved myself a lot of physical and emotional pain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can very much relate in listening to our ladies on the menopause support group. So many of them ask these questions, and it's because there's so much information out there that is incorrect. You talked about the perimenopausal symptoms. And first of all, let's just maybe back up a little bit of a moment. When you say perimenopause, what ages are those? What is perimenopause age? Symptoms that go along with that we wouldn't think of at those ages?
Well, this is a really important place to start because every woman is going to ask themselves, when is it going to start for me? And quite often when you go to your medical professional, they will say to you, when did your mother start? Mm-hmm. And they tend to use that as a benchmark. And actually, that's really bad benchmark because, we are all different. And this is another thing. Every woman's perimenopausal journey will be completely different. So all of these symptoms that we're going to be talking about will not happen to every woman. So you might be thinking at age 25 or younger, because very young women can go into menopause, very, very young women. So there is no age to start. I literally will say to any woman, you know your body better than any medical professional, anybody. You've lived in this body for however many years. If you start to feel changes physically or mentally that you think, you know what, this is not normal for me, that can be the start of your perimenopause. So, what quite often will happen is most women will sit with that and think, and we're going to talk about this, I know, in more depth later, but they might think they have some illnesses. If it's more kind of brain foggy, anxiety, forgetfulness, they might think they're having early onset Alzheimer's. So there's all of these things that you can start thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going mad, or I'm becoming really, really ill. And that can happen literally at any age from, I would say, from mid 30s, you know, but the medical professional will tell us it's around 47. So that's a good 12 years. So you could think this can't be menopause. I would say if you're having any of those feelings, if you feel unusual or different in your body or mind, I would say then start thinking, could it be menopause? Even if you're in your 30s.
Okay, that's very helpful to hear because as you were saying that, I was thinking back to my mother, and I remember being in my early to mid 30s, and I had children a little bit later. I had my children in my 30s, and I remember I was complaining about something, and she would say often, "Oh, I think it sounds like perimenopause. Sounds like perimenopause," and it would make me so irritated because I'm like, "No, it's not. I'm only 34 or 35," and then to your point on that is it wasn't for me until I was 48 that I started feeling, wait, there is something really amiss here. So my mother was about 13 years off, although obviously there's probably changes going on. I just wasn't aware of them yet. But that's interesting. About 47 is what the doctors would say, because it was about 48 when I started feeling like, wait. And for me, it was hot flashes and my mood, my emotions. Let me ask you this, Louise, because I know a lot of women in the group are asking about testing and hormone testing. And is that a good measure of, am I in perimenopause? Am I done with menopause? Would you speak to that?
It's really difficult because I've looked at the research about hormone testing and actually it's quite inconclusive. Everything that I've read, you can go and get hormone tests. They exist. But, depending if you're still having periods, if you're not having periods, your progesterone and your estrogen are literally fluctuating all the time. So you could have that ultimate hormone test on one particular day and it would read completely different 3 or 4 days later. So the research is showing us that actually they're non-conclusive. And that's why I go back to knowing yourself, taking control yourself. And this is why we want to talk about all of these symptoms that exist in perimenopause, because there's 30 odd different symptoms that can signal the start of your menopause. And if we don't know about them, we're not going to think, this could be menopause. We're going to think, I'll be going down the route of medical intervention. What I'm very passionate about with women is they have power. We all have so much power within ourselves and we know ourselves. And there can be a tendency that we will want to give ourselves over to the medical profession. So going back to your question about hormone testing, as I said, the research is inconclusive. So I would say, take your power back, ladies. You know yourself more than a blood test. If you read up about, and we'll talk about what all of these symptoms could be, none of us will be the same. So you can go to your medical professional and they will have 5 symptoms and if you tick those 5 boxes, then they'll say, you're starting on a menopause. Let's see what we can do about it. So I didn't have any of those symptoms when I started with my perimenopause. I had a completely different set of symptoms, which I now know were perimenopausal. I had a blood test, showed nothing, but I absolutely know now that I was perimenopausal. So I spent I would say the best part of 7 years on a downward spiral, because I was in perimenopause and it just got worse. My symptoms got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. That's where my hell began. And then it turned over into mental health issues. Now, if we went back to my original questions with the doctor and he'd gone, should we look at sort of menopause? Should we go down that route? I am 100% convinced that I wouldn't have suffered like I did. So that's why I talk about this all the time. I want women to listen to their bodies, know that these symptoms can be menopause, and just ask the questions, just see what you can do about those. There's lots of alternative stuff we can do. It doesn't have to be HRT, although I'm a huge advocate of HRT.
I can definitely relate to having early symptoms and not realizing that they were perimenopausal symptoms. And I guess I didn't actually start really tuning into them until I was probably in my 40s, in late 40s too. And I actually had my last daughter, when I was 36. So a lot of my symptoms started late. But just saying that, I mean, everybody's symptoms are, and when they start, like you said, are different. And I agree, tuning in and listening to yourself, your body, and what it's saying to you it's definitely a big key indicator.
A lot of women will have all of these symptoms and certain symptoms. They'll go to their doctor and they will be, rather than sort of saying, could you be perimenopausal? Let's deal with that. They would simply diagnose with depression. That is a massive thing, certainly in the UK here. So you've got all of the anxiety that's come from nowhere, sort of forgetfulness, brain fog, that awful feeling of just, what's the point? You sort of get up every day and you're like, what is the point? That joy of life has completely gone. You go to your doctor, you explain. We know now they are classic early perimenopause symptoms, absolute classic ones. But a lot of times the doctor does not recognize that and just goes, oh, you're depressed. And my doctor said that to me. And I just was like, I actually started crying. And they went, oh, you're obviously depressed.
Right.
I'll give you antidepressants. And the amount of women that leave their doctor's surgery with antidepressants, not HRT, or something that's going to actually rebalance their hormones, is criminal, quite honestly, criminal. So I want to debunk that myth for sure. Depression can be a symptom of menopause, but the medical profession are so quick to put us in a box and say, depressed woman, have some medication, which we know can have side effects and lead us down a completely different route and suffering. And so,
yeah. Absolutely. That totally relates to the way I felt when I discovered that I was possibly going into perimenopause, because I work with, not depression, but I work with the stress and overwhelm and those odd feelings. So I knew when they just started coming on, I'm like, that's just unusual for me, which got me on the path. Thankfully, the doctor that I went to was more holistically minded and more women's health minded. But coming back around, because then I look back at even before then, maybe a few years prior, just kind of a feeling of lethargy almost, of like, I can't be bothered. I don't really want to go out. I noticed that like going to do my grocery shopping, I used to love to go to the supermarket, and I just can't deal with those people. Would those have been telltale signs? And so, okay, good, interesting for that. And then, so aside from the depression and the brain fog and the lethargy and not caring as much, what are some other of those like 30 lesser known symptoms? I mean, we know about hot flashes, we know about brain fog and irregular periods and the like, but what else are you seeing that we may not know about?
A big one for me, and a lot of women, is heart palpitations.
Yeah,
and this is my story. One of the I know I never used to bother my doctor, and suddenly I was like, I mean, that's a telltale sign. Suddenly, my age, sort of like 42 or something, I was like weekly popping in there with something else, and I must have gone about 4 times. I was just going crazy. And I actually thought, I'm going to die. My heart is going to explode. I'm going to die. This is it. This is the one. And one of my doctors was like, oh, you would die if it stopped. So good news that you can really feel it beating really fast. And I was like, all righty. I was so scared. And it's really scary. Heart palpitations are so scary. Hey, what if I'd gone in there on the first time and you went, oh, hang on, let's look at your age. And you've had all these other symptoms. Guess what? Do you know what? Don't worry, Louise. Heart palpitations are very common, but fairly common in perimenopause. I would have been relieved. And that's what I say to all the women. You can build a lot of these things up in your mind. And if you haven't had something like heart palpitations before, it's terrifying. You think you're going to die. Actually, probably 9 times out of 10, you're not. Guess what? It's just another symptom of menopause. It will go. That's a whole different reframe, isn't it? So there's that. There's also huge digestive issues. Oh my goodness. We worry as we get older, collagen starts to not be produced as much in our body. And we think about our face and we think about, our springiness and our youthfulness going in our face, usually. But, your whole digestive tract is made from collagen. So if your face is sort of falling a bit, then actually your intestines and your bowel
Really?
is falling a bit. So you have to take a bit of care. You have to go, actually, I have to change my diet. I might have to look at what I've been eating and all those things that I could eat for years without them causing any problems. Do you know what? Now, so if you know that could be a potential symptom, you may not have to go down the route of huge investigations, which a lot of women go into to find out, oh, hey, well, there's nothing actually, we haven't found anything. There's nothing really wrong here. Guess what? It's just another symptom of perimenopause. And that can be resolved, like I say, with changing your diet.
That's a very good point, because as we age, our bodies do tell us what is affecting it, what it likes and what it doesn't like, and what it can tolerate and what it can't tolerate, like heartburn. When I was younger and never had heartburn, and then every once in a while I'll get it, and it's just like, well, where did that come from?
And again, that's another symptom, that whole acid reflux, digestion, pain. I mean, my pains in my tummy were like, I would say at one point we're on a par with childbirth with contractions. Unbelievable. And my doctor offered me really high strength painkillers. I was like, okay, not really. If I had a more holistic approach and I listened to myself, like Robin was just saying, our bodies are changing all the time. This is a big change. This is the only thing that's happening in perimenopause. All that's happening is our body changes all the time. This is a much bigger change. And if we just look at it through that lens, it's not so scary. And if we look at it through that lens, we can also go, okay, well, when our bodies are changing, what do? We have to change what we do to our bodies. I think if you take that control, then with something like digestion, you go, right, I might have to look at my diet and tweak it. You might have to go and see a nutritionist or somebody who's a wellness coach who might help you, because we don't automatically have the answers in our heads. But you can get natural help and stop eating certain foods, eat more of other foods, and And hey, guess what? You're feeling a lot better, much quicker.
I've been reading over the years and came across an elimination type of diet. We do elimination diets when we're checking our food sensitivities and such. But it was recommended to do a version of that during perimenopause or menopause to see what bothers us now versus then. And I always thought, well, like, how would you know? Like, how would I know the difference? Because I've done a few of those. And at the time, they didn't really notice much changes if I cut out caffeine and then add it back in, or if I cut out dairy or sugar or what have you. But now that you're saying that, because I am noticing digestive changes, do you think that would be helpful to look into? I know that there's some out there online and in books and such, an elimination where you cut out certain things for a period of time and then slowly add it back in to see if you react or not. I'm thinking I might need to go and do that again. Do you think that would be fun?
There are a few common sort of allergenic food groups, and it is definitely worth, I think, looking at those certain foods, because they can aggravate your symptoms. So very acidic food, for example. So acidic food would be coffee, it would be alcohol, it would be red meat, it would be ultra processed food, it would be quite a lot of non-fermented dairy. I certainly found that very helpful when I was struggling with at the start, to actually eliminate those foods for a while, because it just gave my whole system a time to just calm down a bit, just calm, because there's so much going on in your body. So if you're not bombarding it with the sort of problematic foods and eating, really ramp up the protein, the lean protein, really ramp up the leafy green vegetables. I mean, that's just a health thing, to be honest. That's actually just general good protocol in health. But a lot of us need reminding of that and need some help and encouragement with that. But it can really, really be helpful. The two things that I'm passionate about adding in, as opposed to eliminating, is definitely more protein. And when we're talking about eating more protein, we're talking about a lot more. 30 grams is quite a lot of protein. So it can make a huge difference, because it stops us eating so much refined carbohydrate. And quite often the refined carbohydrate will cause us all sorts of issues. It contributes to the brain fog. It contributes to the digestive issues. It contributes to the joint pain and the muscle pain. So that's a good start. And adding much, much, much more fiber in, because quite often, if we've got digestive issues, we can quite often think, I must cut out fiber because the fiber is what's causing all of this pain. But soluble fiber is a godsend. So there's something called psyllium husk, which I'm sure you ladies have heard of. But if you don't have enough fiber in your diet, you're going to have glucose spikes, you're going to have higher cholesterol. So, and that's another symptom of perimenopause, raised blood pressure and raised cholesterol. And those two things can go hand in hand quite often. So women who've never had, well, again, that's me. I've literally had all of these symptoms. I've had low blood pressure and I now have very high blood pressure. And I never had low cholesterol because I eat really well. I do practice what I preach on my diet and nutrition. And I suddenly started having high cholesterol. Now, by adding a lot more fiber into my diet, basically the fat sticks to the fiber and you remove it. I mean, there's no miracle cure for anything, but it's a very natural, very cheap, very easy way to ease a lot of the perimenopausal symptoms, really. Just adding psyllium husk.
How much fiber do you find is helpful? Because I had read, and actually another one of the programs I followed was a pound of fiber a day, or a pound of vegetables or fruits. And so that's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And you're going to be eating. That's the thing, is you're going to be eating. I mean, obviously there's higher fiber foods. So obviously your green, leafy stuff, your nuts, avocados are really, really good. But there is only so much we can eat a day. And that's why I do recommend taking something like psyllium husk, which is soluble fiber. And soluble fiber expands and it moves very slowly through your gut. And it just sort of
sweeps the stuff along.
Sweeps it away beautifully. And I'm going to have to do poop talk, constipation, and little sort of, and this is very common symptom of menopause. So your poops are changing. So you're getting these sort of little hard rabbit droppings and they're floating. This is not a good sign. It means you've got too much fat in your body and you're not digesting your food properly. And you really need to add in, and honestly, it can be an absolute life changer for a lot of women. If you do one thing today, is add more fiber into your diet and see the changes. Your skin will look better and everything.
Well, and those are all very good points, adding fiber through husk. And I totally agree with you. Going back to the protein, and how do we get more protein in? 30 grams is a lot.
It's a lot. You need some little hacks, don't you? For example, I would definitely recommend, really what you're wanting to do is cut out processed food because there's too much refined carbohydrates. So to fill yourself up and stop yourself being hungry and actually feed your muscles, because that's the other thing that's happening in menopause is that muscle mass is deteriorating. We need the protein for that. So like you're saying, Robin, we need a lot of it. So I would always, always, always say for breakfast, have a protein and fat combined meal. Absolutely no carbohydrates. So a good example of that would be eggs with avocado.
I will say that getting protein in, the way that I've been able to do it is through having a nice smoothie in the morning, a green smoothie with my protein and a good soy protein. I get my greens in, I get some of my fruits in, which are, natural sugars. I use coconut water, or you can use or you can use a lot of liquid base, but I put celery in, I put avocado in, I can put my healthy seeds in. I can even put my powdered mushrooms in, which helps with brain function. And that is a really nice way of being able to get a good amount of your healthy greens, your
Yep.
proteins, your healthy fats, and a good way to get the day started, because that your body is just like going to set that right up and go, thank you for
Yep.
feeding me.
Oh, no, that's absolutely brilliant because you've got fiber in there with your seeds and the
Mhm.
celery, and you've got so many vitamins going on. I actually am a real believer in protein, a good quality protein
Yes.
powder. I would say always get the best you can afford and the cleanest that you can afford. And that's a great way to get extra fiber. So you can even, if you've got a neutral tasting one, so say you wanted to have eggs for breakfast, you can add protein powder into your eggs,
Oh,
if it's a tasteless one, and it just can double the protein content of a meal. Or natural yogurt is a fantastic. So you might be putting that in your smoothie, which is fantastic. Or you might just want it. I quite often like to eat it. But if you add protein powder into that, you're doubling, it looks the same and tastes the same, but by adding the protein powder in, whoom,
right.
you're
Well,
nearly
and
there.
smoothies are really nice in a way because you can actually have them in the afternoon as well.
I was
And,
going to say any time of the day.
and break that up. And there are so many great smoothie recipes out there today in so many different ways. And that's such a wonderful way to really be able to consume your greens and your proteins and everything that we just talked about here, along with drinking a lot of water. I would say when you're doing these kinds of, if you're going to do a cleanse, or if you're doing smoothies, or even just regularly throughout the day, bump up your water intake, because the hydration is really something that we all battle, and especially in the wintertime. We need the extra fluids in our body to process and help everything to flow. The
Mhm.
one thing also that I wanted to say along about fiber is adding a good probiotic, because those two together will help the gut and the healthy gut flora to push out the bad. It also reduces weight. It keeps everything flowing down there. And when you have a healthy gut, I mean, that's the queen of your body.
Well, the healthy gut, they now know there's the gut brain axis. So if you've got a healthy gut, which drinking your water, having your probiotic, eating fermented food, a really easy way to nurture your gut microbiome is to eat sauerkraut and kimchi, just a tablespoon a day. And if you're eating fermented food like natural yogurt, you're nurturing that. And if your gut microbiome is healthy, it feeds the brain, and you will notice much less brain fog, much less anxiety if you're feeding that well. So there's nerves going and pulses and going up and down between the brain and the gut all the time. And there are estrogen receptors in both of those places, which is very important for perimenopausal women because our estrogen is going down all the time. So you can help before you take hormone replacement. That's a great way in helping that as well. So really good point. Really, really good point. Look after the gut.
Yes. And you had just mentioned HRT and DHRT. So can you explain the difference between the two and why it's important, and when might be a good time for women to start or not start?
Well, it's a personal decision. And I think I am pro HRT because I have seen in my clients and myself huge dramatic changes in their lives by taking it. But however, I would say all of this is a personal choice. But what I would say to any woman is do your research first before you make a decision on whether you're going to take hormone replacement. Do your research and look in the right places. It's really, really important because there's so much mythology and misinformation out there about HRT. And a lot of it is related to the old combined pill. So back in the old days, there was a pill that had the hormones combined in them and they were synthetic. And there was a report that linked it with breast cancer. Now that has actually been debunked. But the thing is, it stays in our heads. When something has become a massive story in the press, it is so difficult for us to get it out of our heads. We believe that, but there is so much research now to say that that's not true. So just look at the modern evidence, look at the modern research and make your decision on what you see now, not something that your mother or your auntie might have told you from 20 years ago. That's number one. And the thing is with the hormones replacements that are available now, they are completely natural. All we are doing, and this is really important for women to remember, all we are doing with the patches and the gel of estrogen and the tablet of progesterone, which is the normal, and then we can also add testosterone into there if we want to. But there are the three main hormones that you will be replacing. Estrogen is the thing that estrogen runs everything. So the reason we start to feel so awful is because on many levels is because the estrogen is not there. So all that gel or that patch with the gel on that we rub in, all that's doing is replacing that natural thing that our body was making anyway. Mm-hmm. So you're not adding in another chemical. You're not adding in some weird thing. It's just literally straight up and down the hormone. So that's one thing to be really conscious of. And then with the progesterone that we like to take at night, that helps with our uterus lining and it helps us sleep and it helps keep us calm and balanced. That's made from organic yams. So there's nothing scary about modern HRT. That's
right. And you did mention that they're made differently today than they were even 10 years ago. And there are a lot more of the natural products that are making like the yam base.
Yeah. It's really important that people know this because there is still a lot of misinformation. And I talk to women who are younger than me on a daily basis, and they will be presenting to me with all of these symptoms. And quite honestly, the first question I ask is, how old are you? Okay. So if they're in their 40s, and I'll say, have you considered HRT? And if the answer is no, my next question would be just, why not? And it's really interesting to hear why they haven't. And 9 times out of 10, they will cite all of this ancient kind of coverage. And they are 9 times out of 10 talking about a product that actually doesn't even exist in the UK anyway now. And I'm like, did you know this? But can I tell you what HRT actually is? And they're like, oh my God. And I said, are you frightened of it now? And they're like, no. So, and that's just a really important message that we need to get across to ladies. And, there is a risk in everything that we do. I'm making it sound like HRT can be a miracle. It can, but also it may not be. And there is a risk because there's a risk in everything that we do. There's a risk in the food that we eat. There's a risk if we're eating ultra processed food. It's highly risky. That's probably a higher risk of giving you cancer than other things. So you have to weigh up the risks. And obviously, if you've got a family history of breast cancer, that's the thing for your medical practitioner to go through with you. But if you're generally healthy, then there are very low risks, very, very low risks, and actually much higher risk potentially by not taking HRT, because if you don't replace particularly the estrogen in your body, going forward into your 60s, then the risk of developing cardiovascular disease and the risk of developing osteoporosis is very high. So you have to take that into account. We have to take the future into account as well. So what we're doing to our bodies now is preparing ourselves for a long life. And I'm completely sure that most women who are listening to this want to live healthily and strongly into their 80s and 90s and even beyond. So if you take the care now, we will.
That's exactly true. If you're healthy, these are definitely good alternatives, HRT or the BHRT. And also making those dietary changes, adding in more exercise into your lifestyle. All these things are small things, but they add up to creating more balance and harmony. And not only just in your body, but also in your emotions and your mental perspective. And they all piece together. Everything is connected to each other. So when you start unraveling the symptoms that you're going through, you have to look at the whole picture, listening inside, listening to your body, talking to your doctor, making lifestyle changes, healthy changes in your diet and your exercise, putting in the supplements that are going to work for you, the HRT, working on where are your levels in your estrogen, in your progesterone. And sometimes, like if you're not sleeping, progesterone or magnesium is also maybe something that your body is needing. So it's all these different pieces. And we are trying to provide our listeners with lots of options to check. And this may seem a little overwhelming sometimes, but there's small steps. There's small things that you can do. These are choices that you have the capability of making for your life.
I completely agree with you. And it is empowering. What we have to think is if we start making all the small changes to our health and our diet and our exercise, and we add in some HRT if we want to, exactly everything that you just said, Robin, it's very empowering because we're not sitting back being victims. And if you can take control of yourself and just start on that journey, it's actually really rewarding. I would say now, when I started questioning and trying to find the answers and then trying things, I started on my path of becoming stronger again and finding myself again, because there is nothing more terrifying for any of us when we've gone so far down the menopause hole that we don't know who we are anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that has definitely happened to me. And I would not have recognized the woman from 5 years ago when I was in the worst place. And I absolutely know that if I'd found the information and taken a bit more active role in what was going on with myself, I wouldn't have got that bad. The message is always there is hope. And that's going back to my book. When I was in absolute depths of my menopause and I was losing my business at the time because I couldn't show up for my business. I couldn't do my business. If somebody said to me then, Louise, you will write a book, which takes a lot. I come telling you now, ladies, it's quite hard. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of clarity. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of concentration. But if somebody had said to me then, oh, in 5 years from now, you will write a book, you will set up a new coaching company, you will have a TV show where you're talking to inspiring women, I'd have been like, you are going insane. But I have done that. And I want to say to any woman, if you are in those depths now, if you do those small changes that Robin's just been talking about, if you do those consistently, you will not recognize yourself in a good way another 5 years from now. There's a really positive message in all of this. There really, really is. So, and if I could do it, you could do it, I swear.
I love that you say that because we see in the groups, I'm sure you've seen it too. I mean, it breaks my heart because I work with the emotional side of menopause. I work with all that goes into releasing old thoughts and beliefs and feelings and traumas that we don't need anymore that no longer serve. And then also looking to the future of the wise woman that I call it that we want to build. And I see these women in the groups and it breaks my heart because they'll use words like they're rotting. their body is decaying. They're rotting from the inside out, and they're basically just waiting around to die. And I see the look of horror on your face. That's how I feel too. And so what I liked about your book is that it reframes that, doesn't it? There are silver linings. There are positive aspects of going through this time in our life. Do you mind sharing what some of those that you have found are?
I just love that the second phase or the third phase of life, it's a much more positive reframing. And, I have found, and I'm genuinely going to say this now, and again, the woman that was in the literal hellhole would be astounded that I'm really going to say this, but I am enjoying. I'm 58 now. I'm 59 next year. So I am looking forward to being 60. I feel like I've come through this. I've got everything set. I've sorted out. And I just want to say to any woman, please believe me, if you're watching this podcast for a start, you're starting to take control. You're on the right path. That's a really, really positive thing. And listen to what the people who've gone before you have said and do what feels right for you. And when you come through it, because you will come through it, you will be better. Better's not a good word. I need a more inspirational word than you are. It's like a phoenix moment. So many women are having the time of their life. And that's hard to imagine when you're faced with a woman, like you say, Marti, who feels like they're rotting from the inside. I mean, it's tragic, but it will be different. It is so possible to be different. And it's very exciting when I see those women, as I'm sure you do, when you see those women who have transitioned and come out like the phoenix from the fire. Oh my God, just think all that knowledge that we've all gained over the years, all those experiences, all that way we can help. And that's why a lot of us want to help others because we have been through all of it and we want to help. And it's a beautiful thing.
I turned 61 this year. And so I've been through a lot of my menopause symptoms, not to say that I don't still have them, but now I recognize them. I have more tools in my toolbox to go, okay, I can see where maybe I haven't been eating cleanly and I can clean up my diet and that can make a big difference. Or I can take a different type of supplement. So now I have so many more things in that are available to me in order to help balance out my life. And also too, I think as the more that you go through this journey and the more that you're able to see what these symptoms are and recognize them and go, okay, I now recognize that I don't have to be afraid of that. I don't have to be alone. I'm not alone. There is help out there. There are wonderful coaches like the three of us that help you to reset your mindset on this journey so that you're not in fear of it, but you're more in control of it. And this is why, like you said, we all come together and we talk about these things so that we can get good, correct information. We can encourage women that they're not alone in going through their menopause journey. These are things not to be afraid of, but to ask questions, get good information out there. There are great silver linings. And the older you get, I mean, you're a powerhouse and you're enjoying your life because you're more in control of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. And I just think it's very easy for us always, because of course we have to talk about all the symptoms and how dreadful a lot of it is, but we can get very bogged down and in it all. And it can become very fearful and it can sound terrifying. So for a younger woman, sometimes looking at a lot of the stuff that goes on in the group, they looked in, they'd be going, oh, God, this is like, oh, nobody told me about this. And I'm going to have to do this. Oh my, this is terrifying. And like you say, Robin, just by talking about it and all the things that we're doing and just engaging with it all, then it releases that fear and it stops all of that. And some of the symptoms never really go away. But if you've got the tools in your toolbox to be able to kind of cope with them and see through them and you reach out and you talk, it's enriching. And I just think the more of this that happens, and I'm sure it's the same for you girls, this wasn't available to me when I started in my perimenopause. It just wasn't. So there was just absolute silence. So yeah, I just think there is hope. There's good. There's a silver lining out there for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. Gosh, we just talked about so much today. This is great. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't talk about that you would like to say now that we're kind of wrapping things up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, trouble is, it's such a vast subject. We haven't really gone into vaginal atrophy. There's so much stuff, but that's kind of like a whole part 2 and part 3 and part 4, isn't it? Honestly, I just really want to hammer home the message to women is just don't be alone and don't be afraid. And you have power. Even if you don't feel like it now, you do still have power. And you're still a wonderful, strong, vibrant woman inside whatever you're feeling like now, and it will get better.
Wonderful. Great words. Marti, what do you think?
I just love what you say, Louise. Like you said, with power and empower, and that's a word that I use as well with my clients. When you arm yourself with knowledge and you know more about it, and yeah, there's things that still pop up that we're like, wow, well, that's new. Well, what are we going to do about that? But just knowing that we are not alone and that there are resources and there are things that I can try. I mean, I could sit here and complain about the weight gain, or I could complain about the night sweats. Well, then I can also look at, well, am I really, let's really take a look at my diet, because it's me taking control. And this is one of the things I like to tell my clients. I work with people who want to quit smoking. Sometimes they're like, well, another thing I have to taken away from me. Now, it's not about taking stuff away. But yeah, maybe you have to look at your alcohol. Maybe you have to look at the sugary sweets or your favorite food that's not necessarily the most healthy. And it's like, what are you getting back? It's a choice you're making. Okay, well, I'm going to eat for me. I'm going to eat so I feel good. And that is power. That is not just laying there going, well, I guess my life is over. So I really love that you share that, Louise. And just so your book, you had mentioned, do you also talk about vaginal atrophy and loss of libido and the like in your book?
Yeah, I do. I talk about all of that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Where do we find it? Where do we get your book? Is it on Amazon?
On Amazon. So if you just put in Louise Able, Menopause for Beginners, it looks like this.
Beautiful.
Looks like a big blood clot.
And do you see clients like one-on-one or do coaching
over Zoom? Do that. Yeah, in person, obviously, where I live as well. So you can, and I'm on Instagram as Happy Healthy Mom. That's the place that I kind of do a lot of my little bits and pieces. So yeah, and please feel free to message me about anything. But yeah, book on Amazon and Instagram, Happy Healthy Mom, and louiseable.biz for my website, which might be actually a bit cranky at the moment.
I just really want to say thank you, Louise, for coming on and sharing all your wisdom, and congratulations on your book. I'm so excited. I have it on order, so it's going to be living in my house as well. So, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. And keep up the good work, you two ladies, because you're doing phenomenal stuff.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us for the Menowave Lounge. Hot flashes and cool conversations. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in the Menowave Lounge. If you'd like to connect with Marti, Robin, our guests, or any of our expert Menowave care providers for personalized advice and support, head on over to our website at menowave.org and fill out an assessment that will match you with a provider who knows just how to help. Remember, you don't have to face menopause alone. Our team is here to provide the guidance and care you deserve. So, take that step towards reclaiming your well-being and connect with a Menowave care provider today. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Menowave Lounge, Hot Flashes and Cool Conversations.